Welcome to the MMAnews.com podcast, powered by Pony Cake Sports, with your hosts, Josh Stevens and Tim Thompson. Woo!
We are back and a little bit different setup. It's been a minute since we have had a podcast, and it's things are changing a little bit. Josh is out actually on a job right now, somewhere in this beautiful country we call the United States of America. And in the interim, I am here hosting inside the Pony Cake Sports Studios. But don't worry, I am joined here over the phone with our friend Josh. Josh, how are you, sir?
Doing good, Tim. Doing good. Can't complain. Again, a little different, considering that it took you now 32 minutes to figure out how to set up everything. Can't complain.
It did take me a very long time to figure out exactly what I was doing. I guess we will wait and see how everything plays out. But there's a lot going on right now. It is a very exciting time in the world of MMA. Let me start here real quick, break it down. We are the MMAnews.com podcast. I am Tim Thompson. That is Josh Stevens. Make sure to follow Josh on Twitter at PonyCake Sports. You can follow me at Fight Talk Tim. Today we are going to be talking UFC 227, the aftermath, what exactly we think is going to happen next, what we liked, what we didn't like. I'm going to have an interview that I did with one Ian Heinisch, LFA competitor. Competed on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series last week. Got a huge victory, dominated. This is the interview that I did before his fight. Want to break that down. He had a lot of good stuff there, and I want to make sure that this got out there because Ian is a top prospect, and he has a lot going for him. So very interested to break that interview down for you guys here shortly. But first, let's start with UFC 227. A pretty interesting card, not because of even the two title fights, but pretty much all of the lighter weight classes. I believe the highest weight class we went up to was middleweight, I believe.
Yeah.
That was Kevin Holland and Thiago Santos. Everything else was below that. 125, 135, 145, some 155 mixed in, but lighter weight guys. Josh, and you and I texted back and forth pretty much throughout the night. What were your thoughts? No fights in particular, but beforehand, before the card started, what were your expectations?
Before the card started, obviously, I mean, you look at some of these cards that are the lower weight classes, just like we talked about, and it is not really, quote-unquote, the high profile or the highly sought-out cards that people go out and pay for or watch or what have you, let alone the promotion of those cards as well. So they did have two title fights with TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt and Demetrius Johnson and Cejudo. But a lot of those other fighters on the card, being in the lighter weight classes, put on a very good showing in their own right as well. Me personally, if it was me, I probably might not have, if I was the everyday fan, or not everyday fan, just the casual fan, I might not have turned in to this card, and I would have missed out on it. So this card was pretty good overall, top to bottom.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting the way it all played out, and I'm going to start here from the Fight Pass prelims on. I'm not sure. I know that you didn't get to watch all of the prelims, Josh, but I do want to talk about them because there's a lot there. I agree with you completely. I'm not sure that casual fans would buy into this pay-per-view. I do believe that the Cody Garbrandt, CJ Dillashaw story, especially the knockout, that iconic picture that from their first fight with TJ after the knockout, right in Cody's face, stuff like that did help. But I don't know necessarily that this is going to be a big pay-per-view number. I think we're going to hear the contrary, actually, when that is all released. But let's start with the Fight Pass prelims. Josh, I'm going to move past you a little bit here for some of these, move past a little quicker, just because I know you didn't see all of them. I believe the first fight you saw was the Jose Shorty Torres and Alex Perez. But Marlon Chito Vera takes on Wilgie Burin in the first fight of the evening. And listen, Chito Vera's story at this point with his daughter, what he's able to do with raising money for her. She had a a disease that basically prevented her from smiling. That story is pretty well explained at this time, but he called on the MMA community. It worked. He had pictures leading up to the fight of his daughter actually smiling. First time he's able to see that in his life, all because of the MMA community. He goes out there, he gets the impressive TKO, call it a knockout, whatever you want to call it, victory to start the card. I was very impressed with his performance. Josh, did you see any of the highlights or no?
I did not. Was this the liver shot, or was that a different fight?
I'm sorry?
Was this the liver shot?
The liver shot, yes. Yes, this was the liver shot.
I did see the highlight on it then, yeah. It was pretty impressive.
Very impressive for him. Interested to see where Chito Vera goes from here. The second fight of the evening, Weili Zhang against Danielle Taylor, I think was the worst matchmaking on this entire card. I absolutely hated it. For those of you that don't know Josh, I'm not sure how familiar you know. Weili Zhang is and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing her name correctly, but she is the most highly touted prospect coming out of China ever, to be fair. Ever. Impressive career, very young. This was her 19th fight, I believe, or 18th fight in her career. She's 16-1, highly touted. Impressive knockout finishes. She's just gone out there and absolutely killed it early in her career. She's being touted as the next champion. She's 28, prime of her career, and this is exactly what the strawweight division ordered, and they put her up against Danielle Taylor. I am not here to knock Danielle Taylor. She's tough. Josh, I know you've seen some of her fights. She's barely 5 feet, if she's that at all. She moves around that cage like a mad woman, constantly moving, constantly. The issue has always been her engaging. She has extremely, extremely powerful hands, but it's just moving around, trying to get that big shot. That's been the downfall of her pretty much every fight of hers. Again, I don't want to bash her here because she's 9-4 and she's 2-2 in the UFC. Or is she 2-2 or 2-3? She's 2-3 now in the UFC. Regardless, she's won twice and she's beaten a big name like Jessica Panay. Okay, she's not a pushover, but she's not a fun fighter to watch. Why are you putting someone like Danielle Taylor, who likes to run, who likes to avoid conflict, against your top up-and-coming prospect, especially in the female division at 115 pounds? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just give her someone who's going to engage with her, someone that you believe she could potentially finish? She's so highly touted. Instead of setting her up to succeed, the UFC set her up to fail here, and I was very, very disappointed.
Yeah, I totally understand, Tim. I get it, and but the thing is, fighters have to fight fighters. And as much as I get what you're saying, where the UFC has to somewhat, I don't want to say fix the matchup because that's not the correct term, but correctly make this matchup to where you show her strengths. I get it, but at the same time, you have to match up with whoever you have to match up. It is what it is.
You have to match up against whoever you have to match up with in pretty much every single fight except for your promotional debut. The UFC did it wrong here, and they literally could have had her fight anybody else in the 115-pound division, and I would have thought it was a better choice. Never mind that. Moving on, the Fight Pass headliner, Alex Perez against Jose Shorty Torres. I will not lie, it is pretty well known throughout the MMA community. I am a huge supporter of Jose Shorty Torres, a friend of the show, a Chicagoan, and over the couple of years of doing interviews with all these fighters, he's always been good to me, and I respond to that by showing support. And in this fight, let's call a spade, Josh. He got absolutely worked. Shorty is known for being a slow starter, and that was his bugaboo in this fight. Alex Perez came out, guns a-blazing. Shorty started slow, and he could just not recover from the onslaught Alex Perez put on him. Just absolutely dominant performance by Alex Perez. Gets improves to 21 wins to just 4 losses. And I'll tell you what, Alex Perez is on some type of tear. Dominant since he's gotten to the UFC. He had the fight with Kevin Gray in the Contender Series last year. And since then, ends in 2017 with a Darce choke victory in his debut. Beats a tough Eric Shelton by decision, and then does that to Jose Shorty Torres. Say what you want about Jose Shorty Torres, but to that point, undefeated, 8-0. If you watched any of his fights at Titan FC, dude was able to take some punishment. Came back every time. Alex Perez absolutely just dominated him. I was extremely impressed by what he was able to do.
Yeah, Shorty is going to have to figure out how to start off quicker, because these slow starts, it got him twice now, or it got him once and it almost got him another time. So he's going to definitely have to change it up a little bit. You also have to remember, this is also a guy that I believe Demetrius Johnson even said that could be a contender down the line.
He did.
Obviously, he's very talented. He had a great record, like you saw with Titan FC. But he's going to have to change it up, and he's going to have to come out, I think, with this next fight, really, really aggressive to start out the fight.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how he responds. Definitely not the start that he wanted to his UFC career, and this is me speaking out of place. I have not talked to him about that. It's not something he has said, but in my opinion, a somewhat controversial first win, and then having this against Alex Perez. Interested to see where he goes from here. Follow to start the FS1 card. You have Shaman Marias against Matt Sales. Not a good fight, but nothing to write home about. In all honesty, you watch that, Josh?
Yeah, this fight I did not get to watch. I was outside letting my dogs out and did not catch the whole fight.
Shaman Marias from it, though. I mean, he was trending on Twitter, so props to Shaman. After that, Ricardo Ramos against Kyung Ho Kang. Ricardo Ramos, I interviewed before this fight. Kid is a stud. I know it's a split decision victory. Kang is very tough, but this is someone who is someone you need to watch. This is now his third UFC victory. He's going to get another step up in competition here. Kang was probably the most experienced guy he's ever faced, but he's going to slowly keep creeping in there. The Brazilian has moved on. He's training at Team Alpha Male. So definitely someone to watch here as they move.
What did you think of his call out of Shane O'Malley after the fight?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. That's what guys in his spot should be doing. That's exactly what they should. Is he going to get the fight? No, probably not.
Yeah.
But he's going to get a bigger name now. He's putting himself out. He's at least the craziest thing about this kid is he had just turned 23 the night of the fight. His birthday was last Tuesday, I think. Last Tuesday or Wednesday. So he just 23 years old. 23 years old, 3 wins under his belt in the UFC. He's the one. I don't know if you remember, he had that spinning back elbow against Faraz Zahabi's brother, Ayman Zahabi.
Yep.
That's his claim to fame. The end of last year. So he's taken some time off here in 9 months between fights. 9 months to the day actually between fights. Look for him to be more he's a very, very, very talented individual. Moving on, Ricky Simone against Montel Jackson. One of my favorite fights of the night. I like both guys a lot. I'm just a big fan. Montel Jackson, I don't know if you saw the picture, Josh. I believe it was post-fight. Montel Jackson had his hands up against Francis Ngannou. Do you see that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, so if you watch any of Montel Jackson's fights, it's pretty much talked about nonstop. His hand control, his wrist control is just outrageous. Like you just constantly see. It's very rare when watching a fight to see someone just have the other person's hands and arms, and just, it's like they're stuck like glue. They can't get past it. And you go and there's a picture of Montel Jackson and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name now that I literally just said. Francis Ngannou, hand to hand, Francis Ngannou is a heavyweight, obviously very scary individual, knocked out Alistair Overeem into the Shadow Realm. And then you have Montel Jackson, who is, obviously, what is he, 145 pounds and the same size hands. Pretty crazy. So interested to see how, Ricky Simone came out there, got worked the first round, in my opinion, and came out there, won the second, won the third. 135 pounds, not even 145 pounds, 135 pounds. And Ricky Simone gets the victory, so props to him. He improves to 14-1. Montel Jackson suffers his first loss. The highlight of the prelims, and I guess that's why it's the headliner on FS1, Pedro Munoz and Brett Johns. Dear Lord. I don't know how this fight wasn't stopped, Josh. I really don't.
Yeah.
What do you think that this is? Listen, Pedro Munoz put on an absolute show. Brett Johns, props to him, has never been stopped in his career. He gets to keep that. His legs were shot. His body was shot. It just seemed like it was a constant him trying to just throw and swing for the fences, and then something would land, and he would just fall over for a little bit. He was able to survive. I don't know how he was able to survive. What are your thoughts on Munoz and Johns?
I'll tell you this, Johns taking that punishment over and over and over again. I give him a lot of credit by the end of it, actually still being in the fight and lasting to a kind of a lopsided decision. I'm looking at these scores, and they're pretty ridiculous. 30-26, obviously, at 29-27, so obviously they gave a 10-8 round. But then a 29-28, the refereeing and it just doesn't make sense to me, Tim. I just don't understand. If two referees officials, scoring officials, give a 10-8, how does the other official not do that as well?
Well, that's just the state of our sport right now. Unfortunately, the 10-8 rounds, I will never, right now, where we stand here today, August 7th, 2018, I will not ever criticize an official for not giving a 10-8 round. Just because there's no, it's not real right now. They have a definition under the new rules. Now this is it old rules? Is it new rules? California, I believe, is under the new rules. So there is a definition of what the new rules are, but no one follows them. No one. I mean, you go back to even Whitaker Romero, the card that I was at.
Yeah.
The Whitaker Romero, the fourth round, I believe it was, the fourth round or the third round, when Romero had Whitaker, in the clouds, and they didn't score that 10-8. That fight very well could have been a draw. If I'm Yoel Romero, I'm more mad that fight wasn't a draw. In all honesty, I'm surprised that wasn't talked about more. But that's my concern there. Until they figure out, until there's a consensus across the United States, number one, for what the rules are, and number two, that people actually start implementing, and following what these guidelines are. I don't care. I don't want to hear about it. I will say I want to bring up about Pedro Munoz. He is not getting nearly enough credit for how talented he is in the 135-pound division. The kid has 3 losses, Josh, in the UFC. He started his UFC career, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He has 10 fights in the UFC. One of them is a no contest. And I don't know what, let me see if I can figure out what that was about. I don't know what happened there. I'm not sure who popped, if it was Sanders or if it was Munoz. But nevertheless, listen, he started his career in the UFC against Rafael Assunção. Perennial bantamweight contender. That's a loss. His second loss in the UFC, Jimmy Rivera. Perennial top contender, top 5, top 3 title guy. His last loss before the Brett Johns fight, John Dodson. Perennial contender, always in the top. He's only lost to the top guys. He has now, what's this? He has 6 wins now, in the UFC under his belt. He needs to make that next step and be the top 5 guy. I am calling for
Pedro Munoz has got a better resume than Cody Garbrandt.
And that's what we were gonna get to here shortly. I know we haven't talked about it yet. This is who I'm calling to fight Cody Garbrandt next. Pedro Munoz against Cody Garbrandt. Mark it down. I know there's other talk out there. There's the John Linekers of the world. Or give me Pedro Munoz against John Lineker. Pedro Munoz needs that step up in competition. And after a performance like that against Brett Johns, I don't see how.
What was he ranked before this fight? Was that 9 or 8?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I have no idea, Josh. He was somewhere in there. Yes, I
believe he was 9, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, Lineker is probably, and again, I don't have it in front of me. I believe Lineker's 4, but I think that would be a fair assessment of a matchup right there.
We will see how it plays out, but that's what, pretty much instantly you saw it all over the big names saying do Lineker versus Garbrandt. If I'm the UFC, I would set up Lineker versus Munoz. Munoz wants to step up. Lineker needs someone or some real competition. Give Cody some time off, and then give him someone that he can. We'll talk more about Cody in a minute. I'm not going to get into that debate with you here right now. Let's move on to the main card. Thiago Santos versus Kevin Holland. What a crazy-ass fight, man. Just a crazy-ass fight. Thiago Santos with his tattoo. I think it was Dan Lamort. Are you familiar with that comedian, Josh?
Yeah.
Dan Lamort had a tweet during the fight saying, he goes, Thiago Santos walked into a tattoo parlor and said, hey, I don't know what kind of tattoo I want, but I love cage fighting and I love Jesus. And the guy said, don't worry, I got you, fam. And then explaining the cross tattoo with the cage around it on his back. Thiago Santos remains to be one of the scariest individuals in MMA, in my opinion.
Yeah, Thiago Santos is a monster, to say the least. And, I mean, he's fighting at 185, right? But he should probably be fighting at 205. He is that muscular and that big. I believe before this fight with
Kevin Holland.
With Kevin Holland, he was supposed to fight Brad Tavares. Am I correct?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So, I mean, I give Santos a lot of credit for taking this fight with Kevin Holland and I give Holland a lot of credit for taking this fight with Santos. Santos is taking this fight, lesser known guy, coming off of the Contender Series, a win on the Contender Series. Granted, it wasn't the most decisive win, but Santos is fighting a guy that is, I don't want to say an unknown, but he's not too shabby. He's pretty talented. But you're taking on a guy like that, and you are basically jeopardizing everything in Santos's corner here. So I give him a lot of credit. I give Holland a lot of credit for taking this fight because Santos is a monster.
Yeah, my other favorite things that I was reading about this fight, someone said, and I can't remember his name, and I regret it because it was a great tweet, said how Thiago Santos was like one of the bosses in the old school video games that you used to play, about how he was extremely tough until you figured out what pattern he was using because it was very repetitive. I thought that was very interesting. And Kevin Holland, I loved all of the Dana White stuff afterwards. Crazy. Kevin Holland goes out there and in a loss impresses everyone and the boss more than he did with his win on the Contender Series. Let's move on to J.J. Aldridge.
Real quick. Did you hear? Did you watch the post-fight press conference at all, or no?
I did. Come on, who are you talking to? Of course I did.
So with Dana White, he said that they called X amount of people. I believe it was like 3 or 4.
Not even X amount of people. They called Contender Series people specifically, guys that had won, and they all turned it down.
Yeah,
they all turned it down.
And then he said, "Call him Big Mouth.
Yeah,
see if he'll take this fight."
Yeah, no, it's great. Kevin Holland is a very interesting individual going forward. I mean, even when he was getting like what you have to
He almost caught him with that armbar. Yeah, a lot of people are probably going to say it wasn't that deep, but honestly, it looked pretty decently deep for a little bit. But after that, I mean, Thiago Santos was pretty much cruising from there on out.
He threw up the Gogo Plata.
Gogo Plata.
I honestly I can't remember if it was Gogo or omoplata, like the flying omoplata. He missed that, and then he almost had the armbar after that. But I agree with you. After that, the rest of the fight was essentially just big brother, little brother type stuff. The part I love about Kevin Holland is like, yeah, he kind of like talks smack throughout, like when he got hit, but it's not even like smack talking. Like it is, but you have to respect the fact that like when he was on the ground, and he was getting punched in the face. Like they zeroed it in, and they heard him say, "That fucking sucks. Don't hit me so hard." Just things like that, and I love after.
Hey, quit hitting me, bro.
Right after he got kicked in the junk, like yeah, it hurt. But then he told Thiago Santos, "Hey, don't worry about it." Well, guys like that, I just respect the shit out of. Like I respect the shit out of the competitors who are like super deadly serious as well, and it's a fight. This is their livelihood. Like I get all that as well. But guys like Kevin Holland, guys like the Sam Alveys of the world. Different types of characters who are out there to have fun, make a living, but they're not going to change who they are. I respect the shit out of that.
I agree.
Moving on, J.J. Aldrich against Polyana Viana. And Polyana was, I believe, the heavy favorite. I know everyone was talking about her going into this fight, and everyone thought Polyana was going to win. She got the rear naked choke in her debut. And J.J. Aldrich has quietly just creeped up and she created herself a little niche here. She's going to keep getting big names. She has the win over Danielle Taylor. She has the win. Her only loss was against Juliana Lima, and that was back in 2016. Since then, undefeated in 2018, won her lone fight in 2017. The only issue I see, all by decision. That's the good part. Josh, what are your thoughts on the fight? What are your thoughts on Aldrich?
Yeah, when I was watching it, I believe I texted you and I said, J.J. Aldrich looked like a little girl that's about to get beat up because Viana looks like a complete monster. You just look at her frame, her build, she kind of just looks the part, and then J.J. Aldrich, she just doesn't look like, to me, a killer. But I'll tell you this, that left jab that she has is a thunderous left jab, and she just kept peppering Viana over and over and over and over and over again. It was impressive to say the least. The boxing for JJ was super impressive. I don't know where she goes from here, but I'm excited to see. And I will probably tune in the next time she fights just because I'm very interested.
I could not agree more, Josh. Listen, J.J. Aldrich is the type of fighter who she isn't going to be shown a ton of love by fans. She doesn't necessarily have that style that is very enticing for fans to watch. But the nerds of MMA, the nerds of boxing, people like you and I, we take a lot. I could not agree more. She just looked like not a smart fighter. She was a genius fighter. She played her way, and beyond that, she played Vienna's game. She got in tight. She played that dirty boxing. She played everything perfectly. I was so incredibly impressed. Props to J.J. Aldrich. And I will say, J.J., I apologize if you're listening, but listen, J.J. got a lot of shit on Twitter on Saturday night. I get Twitter's the place to go and vent your shit talking. Unless you're going to say it to their face, don't. But when something's funny, listen, something's funny. And the best one that I saw, Josh, was someone put out there that J.J. Aldrich looked like she'd be casted for an extra on Orange is the New Black. And I about pissed myself. It was too good.
Oh my God! I did not see that. But that is funny as hell.
I saved that for you for the show. I didn't message it to you on Saturday because I knew we were gonna do a show today, and yeah, I I got a good kick out of that. But I'll tell you what, JJ Aldridge just keeps taking it, and she's winning fights. So JJ, fuck them all. Keep doing what you're doing. You're dominating. Let's move on here to one of the just a very surreal fight, a changing of the guard. I'll call this the changing of the guard fight. Renato Cornero versus Cub Swanson, and wow. You know, Cub Swanson's got his, I don't know if you've seen it, Josh. He's got his almost own reality television show that he's made himself, that he's putting on YouTube. And Renato Cornero, he was a heavy favorite coming into this fight. And he showed why. No, number one, they look like they're two totally different weight classes. You know, I never doubt Cub. It's hard for me now as I get into this media role not to cheer for people like Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson's a guy that I've been watching for over a decade. I mean, since, you know, the WEC. I mean, what do you got going on over there? What are those noises?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just driving.
Oh, you're driving? Sounds like you got a mariachi band freaking playing in your back seat. I thought it was your radio or something. But, you know, Cub Swanson...
What happens when I'm driving stick shift?
Cub Swanson, it's hard to not love him. And this was a homecoming for him in L.A. So happy. He talks about how much money he spent, everything. And it was hard not to pull for the guy. But... at the same point, you saw there's the menacing, the Renato Cornero, what he's done in the game so far. He's the only one to really push T-City, Brian Ortega. It's just, I don't know. You kind of saw the writing on the wall, throughout. And unfortunately, Cub loses. And fortunately for Renato, gets the victory. Super respectful after. What were your thoughts on Cornero?
Man, it's tough because, like you said, we've been following Cub Swanson since the WEC days, ever since that we saw him with the big SoCal tattoo on his chest and the palm trees on his abs. You can't say that very often for most fighters, but he is one of the most exciting fighters to watch, you know, and see him kind of fluctuate in between divisions. He was kind of coming into his own. He was getting ready for a title shot. And now he's lost 3 in a row now. So, I don't know, man. I think Cub Swanson's probably got a couple fights left in him, but I think it's going to be the best days are behind him. And the call-out that, how do you say his name? Mercado? Is that it?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Renato, yes. Renato Moicano. His last name's Carnero, but it's Renato Moicano as well.
So him calling out Ortiz,
Ortega,
him calling out T-City after that fight was a little odd. I understand that he was winning that fight with T-City almost the whole time, and then got caught. But still, I think he's still ranked. After, he's definitely not top 5. He may be close to top 5 now after that fight with Cub Swanson.
Josh,
maybe 6 or 7.
I'm gonna cut you off. I cannot disagree with you more. I really couldn't. Listen, this is a guy he has 6 fights in the UFC. 5 of them are victories. He's gone out there. Now, you say what you want, but he's beaten Jeremy Stephens by split decision. That was April of last year. Then he gets Brian Ortega. Like you said, he was winning. Gets caught against Brian Ortega. Beats Kelvin Qatar, who's one of the top prospects, and now beats Cub Swanson. In his young career, since April of last year, so you're only talking the last 16 months, he's beaten Cub Swanson and Jeremy Stephens. And Jeremy Stephens is being talked about right now for a title shot. He's being considered there. How can you not? Listen, if I'm him, I'm only calling out Brian Ortega as well. Absolutely, I'm calling out Brian Ortega. Why else? What's he going to do? Call out Jeremy Stephens again, who he already beat? No. You're going after the guy that you lost to. It was a competitive fight. And he's, beyond that, Brian Ortega is the hot name right now. Brian Ortega is... I love what Brian Ortega has brought to the UFC. What he's brought to it's bizarre because he's the opposite of what everyone else. He's the opposite of Conor McGregor. He's the opposite of what you want. He's this chill, lax guy who loves jiu-jitsu, loves Jesus, and he comes from nothing and he's cool with that. But everybody, honestly, what I think it is, Josh, I think it's because the ladies like him. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. I swear to you, I think that there's just something about it. Like, literally, I don't know if you saw the stuff with, who was it?
Claudio Gadelha.
Yeah, Claudio Gadelha. Like, that's all going on now. He's like the hot guy right now in MMA. And that's something different. Like, you haven't had a guy like that. Like, I truly can see. Not that Max Holloway, that fight is going to be amazing when that finally happens. But if T-City beats Max Holloway, I'm telling you right now, dude's going to blow up. He's going to be the hot guy. He's got his man bun. He's got like his sad face. He's got those like soft eyes, that sad face. Women just love that shit, man. I'm telling you right now. I know we're going totally off track now. We started with friggin' Hanato, but I'm telling you, man, watch it happen. I'm calling it. He's gonna be a big star. TMC's gonna be all over that shit.
Yeah, we'll see.
Let's move on to the two. Let's get off of our man crushes here. Now everyone's gonna freaking accuse me of having a man crush on T-City. I'm just calling a spade, okay? I'm comfortable enough with myself to do that. Let's move on to the co-main event of the evening. The reigning, defending, 11-time defending flyweight champion, the only flyweight champion ever in UFC history. Mighty Mouse Demetrius Johnson takes on Henry Cejudo for the second time. And Henry Cejudo finds a way. Gets the split decision victory over Demetrius Johnson. Josh, I'm going to let you start because I know for a fact you and I do not see eye to eye on this.
Yeah, we definitely don't see eye to eye. But honestly, it was a split decision loss for Demetrius Johnson. And, this can't really go wrong either way, honestly. But at the same time, I've heard arguments with people talking about if it's a split decision, then title should not change hands just for that because, quote unquote, they did not beat them outright, which I still think is ridiculous because if two judges scored it that way, then it is what it is. But I thought Henry Cejudo came out and did the game plan that he should have had in the first fight. But where the takedowns came into play, I can see the argument where he did not do much when he did secure those takedowns, where he just laid and prayed, where he did just sit on him or just laid on top of him. So I do understand the argument with that. But the thing is, he still got the takedowns. He still threw a couple punches. Does that equate to him winning the fight? That is the big question. I don't know. I'm not going to argue with the decision, though. It is what it is. So
I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you right now. So here's what I want to say about it, because I like Henry Cejudo. And Josh, you know this. I come from I've never been a wrestler, but I love the wrestling background. I love the people who come up through college, all that stuff. I love all of that. But Henry Cejudo did not do enough on Saturday night. That's just a fact. He did not do enough on Saturday. Number one, you and I were texting back and forth on Saturday night, and you said, I think that there's a chance, and I believe Brett Okamoto was the other person who you quoted, that the judges have it 3-0 going into 3-1. Well, either way, okay, 3-1 going into the 5th round. Absolutely not. There was no way. I said that then, and luckily I was right. Now you go to that 5th round. That's what now we have to break down, because it came out, those two judges saw it how I saw it, 2-2. In that 5th round, you had Demetrius Johnson, in my opinion, controlled the first 2 minutes. Henry Cejudo did nothing. If you go back and watch it, through the first 2 minutes. He then secured that takedown. Demetrius Johnson got right back up. Then there was some back and forth. Now, why did Henry Cejudo win that fight in their eyes? The last 15 seconds of that fight, the final exchanges of that fight, Henry Cejudo landed the better punches, looked more aggressive, looked more dominant, looked to be the fresher fighter, and that's why I believe he won the fight. Those last 15 seconds of the fight. If you judge the round on an absolute whole, it's not even close. If you judge the fight on a whole, it's not even close. Demetrius Johnson, outside of being taken down, and outside of that, you hear Henry Cejudo out here now saying how he took away Demetrius Johnson's wrestling. I would hope so. You're an Olympic gold medalist. Seriously? You're like, I understand that MMA wrestling is different than freestyle, different than Greco. It's different than focusing on just that. That's what you've been doing since you were 4 or 5 years old. I really hope that you're happy and proud of yourself for stopping someone's takedowns who's been doing it since he got into MMA. Like, that's just obnoxious.
Stop picking on Henry, all right?
It's just stupid. It's stupid to say, like, freaking pat yourself on the back for stopping takedowns. That is obnoxious. It's truly obnoxious. It's dumb. And outside of that, the way that DJ was able to get out of a lot of those takedowns was unbelievable against an Olympic gold medalist.
There's no real. If he's pulling that roll, it's almost impossible to hold him down. So I give DJ a lot of credit for getting out of some of those takedowns. But you know what? Even some of those split-second takedowns, even if he held him down for 1 second, Tim, you know what that is? Still a takedown.
No, it's not. That's why he was only credited five. No, it's not. That's why he was only credited for 5 takedowns in the fight. It's not wrestling. In wrestling, it may be a takedown. In MMA, it's not. That is why I told you on Saturday night that the second round and the fourth round, where he actually had takedowns that accrued some type of time, sure, those were takedowns. Not on Saturday night. I'm not sure. Let's talk afterwards, Josh. Let's talk about Henry Cejudo then calling out TJ Dillashaw. What a schmuck. What an absolute schmuck. I know you're going to bash me for that. How in the world, with the amount of respect that they've shown to each other, how in the world are you not just going to say, you know what? Demetrius Johnson deserves the immediate rematch. At least put that out there. Even if it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Put it out there.
I'm not going to bash him on it.
Hey, Josh, does your butt hurt from sitting on that fence? Because you're sitting on a fence right now. It's disgusting.
I'm not going to bash him on it, all right? Because now, should he have said that Demetrius does deserve the immediate rematch? Sure. I don't know if I would say it if it was myself. But I think everybody knows, and I think even Henry Cejudo knows that it should be an automatic rematch. But you know what? Demetrius Johnson didn't go up to go fight TJ, and he wouldn't allow TJ to come down to fight him. And if Henry Cejudo is game to do it, I'm not gonna bash him one way or another.
You need to check
throwing out another player's name.
You need to check your facts. Number one, he had no problem with TJ Dillashaw coming down.
Weight and all that stuff,
he wanted a guarantee that he would be paid if TJ Dillashaw did not make weight. Why would you? Why wouldn't you?
I want to guarantee I get a fucking blowjob every day, but you know what? It doesn't happen.
Yeah, but you're not a 10-time defending champ or have a freaking 5-inch penis. You're a little tiny little man, so you can't guarantee that stuff. All right, things are going out of control here. I will say right now, Henry Cejudo, if Demetrius Johnson cannot fight due to his broken foot, I don't know if you saw the picture of his foot ballooned up real bad. He also said post-fight in the press conference that he has an LCL injury. We will see what happens there. But if that rematch does not happen, I would like to see Demetrius, I don't know what I would like to see, in all honesty. I don't know. I don't know. I guess Henry Cejudo, I would like to see. There's the Marlon Moraes. No, Marlon Moraes is up at 135. Maybe, you know what I'd like to see for Henry Cejudo is Joseph Benavidez.
Benavidez has a fight coming up, scheduled.
Well, either way. Then you know what? I'm sorry. And Benavidez lost to Sergio Pettis. So I scratch that.
It very well could be against Sergio Pettis for all we know.
Yeah, it could be. I believe Sergio Pettis also has a fight coming up here pretty soon. But I digress. Let's move on to the main event of the evening. TJ Dillashaw against Cody Garbrandt. Beforehand, we were talking, and Josh, you said TJ does the same exact thing again. And I said, no, Josh, Cody is going to sleep him early. And I'll admit it. That's the best part about me is when I'm right, I'm going to rub it in your face. And when I'm wrong, I will gladly say bravo to you, sir. You hit the nail right on the head. TJ Dillashaw had Cody's number. It looked like he had him pegged. It was almost a mirror to the first fight, but speeded up. It happened all in the first round.
Yeah, my personal opinion, I just think Cody Garbrandt is too slow for TJ's speed. I just don't think he matches up with the speed that TJ brings. And it could be, in your eyes, quote-unquote, a wrong assessment, but I just think that the speed difference is the biggest part of that. And Cody Garbrandt does have a lot more power than TJ Dillashaw does when you look at other fights and the knockout that Cody Garbrandt has had previously. But obviously, TJ Dillashaw is doing something right. So
I'm going to tell you, you're wrong. And I feel confident saying this, and it's not to be a dick, but you're wrong. It's pretty common knowledge. Cody's faster than TJ. That's not the problem. The problem is Cody loads up that right hand, and when he does, he drops that left. I don't understand how, when you go back and watch that first fight, the success that Cody had, the knockdown that Cody had at TJ, and that second round, what does he do? He loads up that right hand and tries to just do that right hand with a left counter. Cody Garbrandt, this is a comparison that I saved for today, Josh. Cody Garbrandt is the Chuck Liddell of this era. That's who Cody Garbrandt is. He is. It's all looping punches. Name one straight punch that you saw from Cody Garbrandt. Nothing. Yeah. You know the difference between this fight and the first fight was kicks. That's it. It's literally the only other thing that Cody Garbrandt added to this fight were kicks. I do not bash on Cody Garbrandt like you do. On Saturday night, you were being an ignorant prick. You were saying that Cody Garbrandt wasn't that good. That's wrong. That's just not factual. TJ Dillashaw is very, 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 very good. Cody Garbrandt is also very good. He just was outclassed. That's just all that is. Cody Garbrandt was outclassed twice. The UFC did him a disservice by not giving him another fight. One fight, two fights. In the meantime, they literally did to Cody what they did to Joseph Benavidez. Now Cody Garbrandt's in no man's land. Unless he's going to move up or move down. You pick.
I'm excited to see what happens with Cody Garbrandt after this fight, because
I'm not.
If he faces a guy like, who else is in the division? John Lineker, right?
John Lineker's there.
A guy like John. Say that again?
I said, yeah, John Lineker's there. We talked earlier. Pedro Munoz. There's the Marlon Moraeses of the world. There's the Jimmy Riveras of the world. There's Rafael Santos.
I look at that list of guys, and I don't know if I have Cody winning those fights against those handful of guys.
And that's why you are bashing him like just a miserable soul that you are. But
he's got a terrible resume compared to other people, but
but it's obnoxious for you to say. Like, we argued on Saturday. Honestly, it's just stupid for you to say out loud. He handled Dominic Cruz. I don't care if you think Cruz was on his game, not on his game. Josh, name one other time ever that you saw Dominic Cruz get embarrassed inside of the cage. Ever.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen often.
No, it doesn't happen, is what you should have stuck with. It doesn't happen. It's not a flash knockout. It's not a flash submission. For 5 rounds, Cody Garbrandt went in there and embarrassed Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz is the smartest fighter in all of mixed martial arts, in my opinion. Outside of his physical talents, he's the smartest fighter in mixed martial arts. That has never, ever happened to him. Ever. That alone. Then you go to the Thomas Almeida. Thomas Almeida at the time was the second coming of Jesus Christ. He was the next Jose Aldo style Brazilian fighter for all Brazilians out there. He fought Takaya Mizugaki. Did stuff to Mizugaki that Cruz could not do, that no one else could do. It's to say that he's a bad fighter, that he's not that good, is just uneducated and just stupid, in all honesty.
I don't know about that, Tim. I feel like I'm a very educated person.
Let's get away from Cody here for a minute. Let's talk about TJ. What's next for him? There's the talk of him. He wants to go down to lightweight so he can get 2 belts. There's talks of obviously Cejudo coming up to bantamweight. There's a Suncells in the world who he's already beat. Cruz is like the big thing. I don't know if you saw Cruz on the MMA Hour yesterday. Dear Lord, I have never been a Dominic Cruz fan. Ever. I was always a Team Faber before I got into the media side. And like I said earlier, his knowledge, his presence of the state of the division, the state of himself, like he's so self-aware, and he was just fired yesterday on the MMA Hour. I said to you on Saturday night that how the hell do they take Dominic Cruz and put him in a title fight next against TJ Dillashaw after his last fight was almost 2 years ago against the guy that just lost on Saturday. I don't know what to do with TJ Dillashaw right now, Josh.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, the UFC can do whatever they want. Obviously, you look at the DC versus Brock Lesnar fight that may happen at the end of the year, beginning of next year.
February, yeah.
What has Brock Lesnar done? Pretty much nothing. He beat.
He's been the WWE Universal Champion for, I believe, over 3 years now.
Say it again?
Brock Lesnar's been the WWE Universal Champion. He's trying to become the champ.
Yeah,
no.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, they can take anybody and match them up with whoever, and the UFC is going to be fine with that because they're making the money. So, honestly, should I see Cruz versus TJ Dillashaw? I think it's a very, very distinct possibility that it could happen.
You maybe...
Should it happen? Should it happen? No, I don't think so.
Very interesting to see how it all plays out. I do think that the main thing that they could sell there is, listen, prior to the UFC's division, before the UFC's bantamweight division, Dominic Cruz is the greatest bantamweight of all time. Even early into it, like he went into there, he won it, he defended it. He was the greatest bantamweight. Injuries have held up his career quite a bit. TJ's big loss was to Dominic. And it was a very controversial, but it comes back to it shouldn't be this way. A good majority of people don't agree with it, but you mentioned it earlier. To be the man, you gotta beat the man, said Ric Flair. And it seems like that may hold true. Let TJ go out there. If TJ goes out there and beats Dominic Cruz in impressive fashion, he cements his legacy as the all-time best. Josh, that was some fantastic 227 talk. Almost an hour's worth. Dear Lord, let's get to the Ian Heinisch interview. We will be right back. Thank you very much. Tim Thompson from MMAnews.com here with Ian Heinisch. Ian, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
Doing fantastic, thank you. So, Ian, you are fighting Justin Sumter at Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series on July 31st. So, we appreciate the time before the big fight. So, let's start with that fight, getting the call. When did you hear that you were going to get that opportunity, and what was that experience like for you?
It's been in the mix for a little while, and it was officially announced last night on pay-per-view with Cormier and Stipe. And, yeah, it's been great. honestly, I was kind of expecting to get a short notice before them, but the way things are going, it doesn't look like it, and, I'm excited for this opportunity as well.
Is it something where ideally you wouldn't have to go through the Contender Series? You'd prefer that, just a short notice and you're in type of situation, or do you kind of just have in your mind, it kind of seems the path is set now here a little bit, where you're going through LFA, you win a title there, you get a shot on Contender Series, and you move your way up, through the ranks that way?
In the past, more guys who win the LFA belt get short notices. As soon as the opportunity comes, those are the guys in line. But it seems like the UFC has kind of shifted lately now to more signing more people off the Contender Series, which is fine. I'm willing to fight whoever they put in front of me. I'm just going to continue to showcase all my hard work. And what I've noticed is that Contender Series guys that do well and impress the boss get taken care of really well. So I'm excited to have my new boss front row and the opportunity to get to showcase my skills and impress him and be taken care of in the UFC.
Before we talk about Justin Sumter, let's talk about kind of the last, year and a half here for you. You're 10-1 as a professional. You've been very impressive throughout your career. You have that one loss to Marcus Perez. He's now, in the UFC himself. Do you think that the fight with Marcus was kind of one of those situations where, you hear fighters say it all the time, a loss is the best thing that could have happened to you because it kind of helped, open you up in your fights after that?
Yeah, definitely. We've assessed it, I've assessed it, and it's definitely been the best thing that's happened to me because so many things, it was a mentality change. The pressure's off of being undefeated for so long, and kind of just you grow so much more off a loss than a win, and I grew a lot, and I put my head down and I worked hard, and I came back, and fight at one of the highest levels outside the UFC, fighting top-notch guys in LFA, and I'm coming off 2 knockouts since that loss, and I got an opportunity to fight for the LFA belt again, and got a first-round knockout. So, it just makes you more of a complete fighter, and I believe it's really added to my game. And like you said, it is the best thing that could have happened to me, and it's better that it happened then and not, first fight in the UFC or further down the career. So, yeah, I'm glad it happened, and things happen for a reason, and I feel like I'm in a better place now, and I'm ready to shine July 31st.
You mentioned the two knockouts, both of them very impressive over the last 2 fights against Gabriel Checo and Daniel Madrid. Do you feel any sort of pressure going into the Contender Series? I'm not sure if you watch the Contender Series yourself, but 14 out of the 15 fights that have gone down so far, they've all been finishes. And I believe there was a 2, a 3, and a 5. So, they've handed out a good amount of contracts right now, but still, there was a good handful of guys who have finished, and they still get passed over. Does that make you a little bit, hey, I really have to, do something impressive here in order to get that contract?
I mean, yeah, the sense of urgency is there. But, I'm going to go out, I'm going to put my game on them, and my style of fighting is explosive, it's fast-paced, so, I'm just going to go out there and dominate. That's my main goal, and I know if I can achieve that goal, that I'm going to impress the boss, and that's what it's about, I mean, obviously, yeah, he wants to finish, but he wants a guy that he sees that is potentially a future star in the UFC, and July 31st, I'm going to show him that, and, I'm excited.
Your opponent on the 31st, Justin Sumter. How do you address opponents? Are you a big film guy? Do you have a kind of a strict regimen that you go on when you enter a camp, or how does the whole process work for you?
Yeah, I'm not much of a film guy. I don't really know much about him. I let my coaches and team kind of examine him, and just we train accordingly. And feel like he's pretty green. He doesn't have that big of a record. He hasn't fought that many, high-level guys. And obviously we're going to, fight him like it's another world title fight. But, I just don't believe he's been in the same places in the fighting world and in life. And I believe I'm just going to take him in deep waters fast. He's really in over his head. And, like I said, he doesn't have a face. He doesn't have a name. He's just a body in my way. And this is my time. It's hurricane season, and I'm going to get this contract.
You mentioned, you let your team kind of handle the film and just build the game plan around you. Then you're still over at Factory X?
Correct.
And who do you have a kind of regular set of training partners that you deal with there on a daily basis?
Yeah, definitely. We got all kinds of training partners. Anthony Smith, who recently fought in main event against Mauricio Shogun. And, a guy who's been a big part of this camp with me is Chris Camozzi, who's fighting in Glory in August here in Denver. Mm-hmm. He's a taller southpaw with, obviously not a ground specialist, and it's very similar to my opponent. So, yeah, we're definitely coaches got to, I trust my team. They're putting guys in front of me and sparring that are similar to my opponent, and I feel great about it. I'm confident. That's the best I've ever felt mentally and physically. So I'm really excited for the opportunity.
You're going to turn 30 just after this fight for Contender Series, and if everything goes according to plan, you get a nice little early birthday present there after it happens. How do you see, as someone right now on the outside looking in, potentially getting right in the mix of it though, just the current status of the UFC's middleweight division? It seems like it kind of aged pretty quickly there, especially in the top 10, the top 15, and now it's getting wide open. A lot of young talent up and coming. How do you see yourself fitting in?
Yeah, definitely some up and coming guys like the guy who fought Uriah Hall, Costa. He looked really good, and definitely some young talent. The division's stacked, but I see myself getting this contract, and I see myself I feel like the lower level guys in the UFC, a lot of the guys who got signed, I feel like I'm gonna climb the ranks fast through those guys, and I'm excited because it's where I belong, and I've known this for a while, and now it's all coming to fruition, and I'm gonna get in there, and I hope to do like Neil Magny and just start knocking them down, and go on a 6-7 win streak and try to break in the top 10 as soon as I can. Take short notices and just stay focused. I'm excited for the next few years, definitely.
Absolutely. Just a few more minutes here with Ian Heinisch. Again, he's fighting at Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series on July 31st against Justin Sumter. So what are obviously there's a lot of fans out there, especially the hardcore fans, been watching you on Access TV, watching you fight for LFA, a champion there now. We know you, but for the UFC fans who don't know who Ian Heinisch is yet, what can they expect from you? What are you going to bring to the table in terms of either trash talk or style? What can new fans expect from you?
I'm the definition of a contender and a true comeback kid, and I'm going to go in there. I'm going to put it all on the line. I'm going to be explosive, fast-paced, and I'm a complete fighter. Like, I'm a striker. My ground game, as everyone knows, that's my first love and first base that I have. So, this new generation, we're just complete fighters. So, just expect a fun, action-packed fight and me getting my hand raised at the end of it.
I wanted to ask you as well. You're fighting out. You're still located in Colorado, right?
Correct.
So, is it something that you're kind of looking here in the future? Get a win on Tuesday. That what was it? November 10th, I think it was. The UFC will be at the Pepsi Center, and that's actually their 25th anniversary show. So is that something that you're kind of looking forward to? Hey, get a win here. I might be able to set myself up nicely for a to be on a pretty important card.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to be on that card. I'll tough to fight in front of my home crowd. I'd like to get a fight before then too. But yeah, definitely, I have my eye on that as well, and I would love to, make. I mean, if I had to make my debut here, that'd be awesome. But it would be cool to have my second fight here and just fight back home in front of the home crowd and at the highest level. I'm excited, and I feel like this is my year. This is the new me. This is the new year. And I feel like I just need to focus on the fight coming up, and the rest is just going to all play out how it's meant to be.
My favorite part about LFA and the fighters that they are bringing to the forefront and bringing to the table is how active they keep you guys. It seems like that's the thing a lot of the young fighters want. This will be your third fight here in 2018. Ian, like you mentioned, you already have 2 knockouts here this year alone. So it'll be very interesting to see how the fight goes down between you and Justin Sumter on July 31st. Are you a prediction guy? Can we get a prediction of how you think the fight's going to end?
Tune in July 31st and expect a fun, entertaining, action-packed fight with me getting my hand raised at the end.
We absolutely will do that. Before I let you go, are there any sponsors, teammates, coaches, friends, family that you want to thank?
Yeah. First off, I would like to thank all my coaches at Factory X and Landau Performance. Also, thank all my sponsors, Legal Pete, Receptor Naturals, Eldorado, Northern Climate Control, Denver Sports Recovery, Rad Roller, In the Cut, Denver Distillery, Jesse James Accounting, Relief Massage, Jamie Atlas Personal Training Recovery, Pizzeria Colore, and I'd like to give a shout out to my manager, Jim Walter.
Like a true professional, has the sponsors and the management, the shout outs on hand. Ian, best of luck to you on the 31st, and we look forward to seeing what else you have for us here in 2018.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the call.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
And that was our interview with Ian Heinisch. Again, that was his prior to his Dana White Contender Series performance. Very impressive. Congrats to him. And look forward to seeing what he brings to the UFC. Josh, just a few minutes here. We've run our course here. It's been a great show. I've actually enjoyed not having to look at you. So that way when I call you an uneducated asshole, I don't have to see your crying face. But I want to talk a little bit of UFC news, if you would. Let's start with the Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Officially announced for UFC 229 October 6th in Las Vegas, Nevada. Josh, it's happening. What do you think?
Yeah, it's obviously pretty exciting because Conor McGregor's coming back and he's going to get beat up by Khabib, of course. But I'm also interested with another fight that has been announced, which is Nathan Diaz versus Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier came out and said that he wanted to wait for a title shot. He will not be fighting unless if it's for the title. He comes and says, I'll fight Nate Diaz. So I'm pretty excited for that fight as well. But going back to the Conor and Khabib fight, that fight's going to be pretty exciting, man. And I'm going to be very interested to see if we're going to see the Conor of old, where he comes out and trash talk this, MF said, blah, blah, blah. Or if we're going to see a new Conor turning a new leaf like he did with Jose Aldo, where he congratulated Aldo and said all of Ireland is behind Aldo after his win. I thought that was very an odd statement from him. Obviously, it's greatness, recognizing greatness, but at the same time, it is not very Conor-like. So I'm very intrigued to see what happens.
It's because you don't understand that it's a show, son. It's Conor putting on a show. He is selling fights. That is why he is the notorious Conor McGregor. Listen, I don't know what's going to happen. I am just glad, if nothing else, after all of this, when those two finally get into the cage on October 6th, it can be laid to rest. Anyone who ever says that Conor McGregor has dodged a fight. A question I put out there on Twitter was, with the win, if he goes out there and he knocks out Khabib Nurmagomedov after 2 years outside of the cage, is he the greatest of all time?
The greatest of all time? No, I don't think so. I would not say that.
It's at least a question. It's at least a question at that point. What he did to Jose Aldo in that amount of time, if you would have told anybody that he would do that to Jose Aldo that quickly, they would have laughed at you. If he goes out there
he finishes, I'm not saying it's a bad question by any means. You obviously have thought behind the question. That's the biggest thing. You have to think about it, and that's the tricky part. So I don't know. I'm kind of in the air with it, but I would tend to say no. But I'm not sure.
Now, did you see why Khabib Nurmagomedov is being criticized, under some fire? Did you see why?
Say that again?
Khabib Nurmagomedov has caught some flack. He's being criticized highly. Did you hear what he did?
No.
There's video of him in New York City with I believe it's his brother. And his brother is forcing homeless people to do push-ups while they point and laugh at them and then give them a little bit of money. He's being it's a real thing. Look it up. There's video of it. I believe it's his brother is the one on camera, but Khabib just laughing hysterically in the background. Pretty interesting. Makes me think, what if it was Conor? If Conor was doing it, woo-wee, would not be.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. Obviously, it would not be if Khabib is getting just a brush off with this, and hey, it's no big deal. Obviously, I think we can all agree that Conor would be catching a lot more flack for it.
Josh, last thing for you from this fight. It's been declared by the MMA media the biggest MMA fight ever. Is that true or is that false?
I would say that's true for this fight. This may be the biggest MMA fight that people have been anticipating for. I mean, it's a fight that we've been talking about for almost 3 years now, maybe even longer. So it's very interesting to say the least. I'm excited for it. I know you got to look at it from everybody's point of view here. When Conor McGregor fought Mayweather, was it all those buys because of Mayweather, or were all those buys because of possibly McGregor, or a combination of the two? I think a big part had to deal with the McGregor portion of it. So with that being said, this may be one of the biggest drawing cards and the biggest MMA fight in mixed martial arts history and the UFC.
People are claiming that it will break 2 million buys. It'll be interesting. I don't know if this does more than Conor Diaz. We will have to wait and see. Very possible, though, with how many times you will see Conor McGregor throwing a dolly through a bus window all over the internet and sports networks. Let me
ask you this.
Yeah.
What would do more buys? This fight, Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov, or would it be a trilogy fight between Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz?
I do think the trilogy fight would do more, in all honesty.
I would say that as well.
Yeah, just that. I mean, I put it out there. I believe I might have it pinned right now. When the UFC initially announced Nate Diaz versus, and this is before Conor's fight was announced, Diaz versus Poirier, I put it out there. The UFC is trying to do, if everything works out the way they want it to, Diaz versus Poirier, Diaz wins. Conor versus Khabib, Conor wins. And for the lightweight title, Nate Diaz against Conor McGregor in Las Vegas in a bigger venue, or wherever they do it, in a monster venue, and they break 2 million, they get close to 2.5 million pay-per-view buys. That's why, if they can make that happen, it would be unreal. That's what they're trying for, in my personal opinion. Josh, let's move on here. Last few things I want to touch base with you with. I know you've been a little bit out of the loop, but did you see that Ben Askren has reached out to Dana White? Dana said he talked to him. If he becomes non-contracted, apparently Ben still has that contract with ONE FC. Dana would listen, but he has to be out of contract first. What do you think?
You know why I stand on Ben Askren? I love Ben Askren, and if he wants to fight in the UFC, I would love to see it. So I don't care. If I get to see it in the UFC, I'd be happy.
We'll see how that all plays out. Stipe Miocic has been critical of Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier made a comment at the end of the 227 card over the past weekend about how it would be egregious. Demetrius Johnson was the best flyweight ever, and how it's crazy to not have him get an automatic rematch. And then he's like, well, and Joe Rogan, props to Joe, called him out and said, what about Stipe? He was the best heavyweight ever. And Daniel Cormier said, if it was anyone else besides Brock Lesnar, I would do it. If Brock Lesnar can't compete for any reason, I will fight Stipe. But at this point, Stipe and DC and Brock Lesnar are going to happen in February. So Curtis Blades, the odd man out, back at UFC 225, viciously knocked out Alistair Overeem. He very, very respectfully called out Stipe Miocic and said he wants to fight him November 10th for the 25th anniversary show. Number one, it's not going to happen because that's not on pay-per-view. But would you like to see Curtis Blades versus Stipe Miocic?
I would love to see Curtis Blades versus Stipe, but I honestly think that Stipe deserves an automatic title shot or a rematch. I think it's outrageous. I think it's outlandish. I think it's a slap in the face. I think it's not right. And if you can say the same thing for Demetrius Johnson, just the same idea, same thought process. It's just not right. Something's got to change.
I understand both sides. I do agree Stipe deserves the automatic rematch, but I don't blame Cormier for wanting to fight Brock Lesnar. That payday, that's a payday that's for his future right there. And I do think, to be fair, the Demetrius Johnson deserving a title fight is different than Stipe deserving an automatic rematch. Stipe, as great as he is the greatest heavyweight of all time, not on Demetrius Johnson's level. And not as deserving.
I don't know, Tim. I just don't understand. I don't get it how people can say that Stipe is not deserving of a rematch.
No, I said not as deserving as DJ. I didn't say it wasn't deserving. I said not as deserving as DJ.
Unless if you're going to give a title shot to Curtis Blades to be the next number one contender and not Brock Lesnar, then I would agree with you. But I just think it is a shame. I think it really is.
We'll have to wait and see what happens. There's a lot of different semantics to it. The more title defenses for DJ, the way the last fights were finished, the history in their statistics shown that when the guy who lost the title and lost by being finished gets the automatic rematch, it never ends well. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Josh, there's some other things that we could go over. We could talk about Colby Covington going to see the President of the United States. We could talk more about Nate Diaz. We could talk about Israel Adesanya and Derek Brunson's beef, but I don't have anything else right now. I'm going to leave the show at that. We are approaching an hour and 20 minutes, so what else? Do you have anything, any parting shots, anything you'd like to say?
No, let's end this.
Spoken like a true happy little camper. Josh, I appreciate you calling in, and hopefully we'll continue to knock these out here week after week. Make sure to follow us. We are the MMAnews.com podcast, powered by Pony Keg Sports. I am your host, Tim Thompson, here with Joshua Stevens. Make sure to follow Josh on Twitter at Pony Keg Sports. You can follow me at Fight Talk Tim. Make sure to follow the website for all the latest. We have breaking news. We have predictions. Anything you could possibly want, MMAnews.com has it. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen,